Exception, Blacklisted Podcast.
All right, yeah, welcome, guys. We are here with Dr. Jerry Mangine. Yeah, doctor. So today we're going to kind of talk about a lot of stuff with actual data behind a lot of our CrossFit world and how it relates. And Jerry's going to really enlighten some of you guys in some things. If you really want to know if you're going to be good at CrossFit, you listen to this one because he's not going to tell you. But Dan, go ahead and take it away.
Fact. Before we get rolling into it, a couple things. One, I'd like to take a moment of silence to respect the passing of Akira Toriyama, creator of Dragon Ball Z and many others. So it was 30 seconds. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say 30 a little long.
And also, coming at you as well today to announce something exciting. We have Zero FG Energy Drink. Adopt the mentality. Pretty fantastic. Get yourself some. Use code Tristan20 to get a cool discount and some other things. But as Griffin said, we have Dr. Jerry Mangine here. Fantastic and wonderful professor at the Kennesaw State University.
By opinion.
By opinion. By fact. Objective, empirically backed fact. Empirically backed fact.
Appreciate it.
He's one of the very few professors in the world that actually produces legitimate, fantastic, and actually progressive and woke data relative to the CrossFit world.
Because he cares.
Because he cares, yes.
Don't care.
That is a fact. He puts a lot of time and effort into this, and this is going to be, like Griffin said, a very important podcast to listen to. So Dr. Jerry Mangine, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you want us to stop calling you doctor and just go by Jerry from now on?
Whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Big M?
I'm good with it. Yeah. Big M.
Big M?
Big M. Dr. M. DM.
Do you slide into it?
Sure, why not?
What? Do you want to just tell some people kind of a little bit about your background? Obviously, you could talk about whatever you want just to let people know kind of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, so, big into sports. I was a gym rat in high school and went to college, D3 football. Still a gym rat. I'm not the tallest guy, so playing college football, I had to work out pretty hard. And
probably the swollest doctor at a facility that I know of.
Well,
clean.
yeah, you should see some of the people that
swole and clean.
And clean, yes. Smell nice too.
Yes.
But yeah, I really got into working out, and I started wondering how do I get on the field? What do I have to be perfect because I'm not that big. So
Rudy.
Exactly, yeah.
Rudy.
Dude, I used to own the Rudy jacket.
Did you really?
Yeah, that was my nickname.
Okay, it's pretty badass.
Yeah, my number was.
Fair, but Rudy was also 5 feet tall. You're
a
not.
little bit. I'm a few inches taller than that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that getting into strength and conditioning after that, and getting into the research behind that, I always wondered what made a great athlete. And honestly, you were there almost right from the beginning of my CrossFit endeavor. I had just got into it a little bit before I met you, but I looked at it and I was just like, man, there's nothing on this stuff.
What year was that?
So I met you in 2017.
Yep.
I got introduced to CrossFit in 2016, and I looked at the research, and I don't want to say anything bad about other people that are trying really hard, but it needed a lot of work.
That's fair. Yeah.
And there was barely anything.
2016 is kind of time it really shifted or began. The shift began, right? Is important how that needed to be put in.
And I wish I had this one printout where I had the timeline for CrossFit research, and it was right around 2015, 2016. You're still looking at less than 50 studies total.
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah.
Total, and most of them are on injuries or
of course,
the social.
Of course, hold on, injuries.
Yeah. But you had 10 or 12 studies all about injury rates, and then the social aspect, why people like to do CrossFit, that kind of stuff. And so I'm the actual physiological studies, maybe a handful, and they were bad. They just you didn't know who these people were. they just did all kinds of measures just out of nowhere. And so that's what got me into it. And then I started doing CrossFit, and and with research, you really have to have that insight,
Yeah.
all right, to know what you should be testing for. And so, Griffin, you were there right at the beginning, and you're part of that learning process, introducing CrossFit to me. And then you, at the time, you were on your rise as an athlete. And so seeing you, make it to the games as part of a team and struggle and go in individual and still have a difficult time. And then also seeing you work out at the gym and seeing how strong and powerful you are. And it's like, how's this guy, not winning it? I mean, he's the strongest guy there. He's the most powerful guy there.
Confirmed.
Well, it's the test. It's what they test.
Yeah.
It's how they test, what they define as the fittest, right? So for me, unfortunately, one thing that is very difficult to get rid of is fast twitch muscle fiber. Once you've developed it for the majority of my life, 20 something years.
Yeah.
And that power output is a detriment sometimes to what CrossFit tests. It's good for a tester too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
But it doesn't help you when you go run 6 miles with a weight vest and have to do a bunch of gymnastics, but like body weight overhead gymnastics, when your sport was mainly driven by your legs and being explosive there.
Yeah.
So yeah, like when I had a dinner with Castro last year at the games, and like he goes, we're sitting down, and
Don't be a bitch.
well, he's like, how much do you lift? And I was like, what? I was like, I mean, what, like with what? Like,
A lot.
he's like, he's like, snatch. Like, how much do you snatch? I was like, I don't know. He's like, you don't know? I'm like, no, like, I don't max out. Like, there's no point as a competitor. I'm above that level. Why I understand you should know your numbers. The thing is, if I train strength, I should be in Olympic weightlifting.
Yeah.
100%. Like,
Yeah,
there's,
sure.
and he's like, okay, so like, what's the most you've snatched? I was like, 335. And he's like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I was like, whatever I got to lift, I'll go do and hit it. And he's like, that's ridiculous. And I'm like, I mean, yeah, I also back squatted 700 pounds at one point in my life. And he was like, that doesn't make sense. I mean, it does if you played sports.
I know that's not that uncommon.
No, right. I mean, for like my size, yeah. But not on like common. And he's like, like we could write the games where like you win. I was like, you should.
Yeah.
Like why not? And he's like, we're not going to though. I was like, I know. And that's why I don't lift all the time. Like, you have to build all of this other stuff, and this power output. Like, I think it's a great. It sets you up to say like, hey, this is how good you potentially could be in CrossFit, but it's not going to be your number one ultimate like thing to say like, hey, you're going to win the games because your power output is so high. Actually, I remember when we did that. When we did the what was it? The 4-minute bike test.
3 minutes.
3 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Also because I did it
Actually,
fasted.
I actually enjoyed that test. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I thought I had to do it fasted, and it was the worst time ever.
Yeah.
I was on the. You don't remember? I was on the floor for 2 hours.
Everybody's on the floor after that.
For 2 hours.
Yeah.
So you let the
Fair.
bodies hit the floor?
Huh? Yes.
Like, I'm sure you were like, why is he still down? Like, well, because I didn't eat anything for 12 hours. But
I knew you'd be all right.
I was gonna be fine. I mean, I'm not a bitch, but dude, that was terrible. But you also were like, I haven't seen anyone's output just go like that and then just fucking completely plummet so fast.
I mean, honestly, the type of athlete you are, that was completely expected.
Right.
I mean, you should be really powerful and then die out. And, it makes sense what Castro said about, you're not going to win because you're this powerful. I mean, you go back to the definition or all those fitness domains that is listed in the level 1 training guide. I mean, it's not just power. It's not just strength. It's endurance. It's all those things. So it does make sense.
Yeah. I mean, you want to be general. You can't be the best at something. You have to be really close at everything.
Yeah. And that's from a physiological standpoint, that's an oxymoron. I don't know if that's the right word for it. Sure.
It's fine.
It wasn't.
It's fine. It can hear him. I promise.
You hear me now?
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, you can't be good at everything. I mean, like getting really strong, that causes one thing to happen in your cells, and getting endurance, that causes the exact opposite thing to happen in your cell. So how could you be both? You can't.
And why don't you hit on that for a second, if you don't mind, because that's really cool, and I feel is a major part of like the end game of this conversation. I feel like it's a great starting point.
So, all right, what I was just talking about. So, if I want to be big, strong, powerful, I am trying to stimulate protein synthesis. I'm trying to build muscle. There's the coordination, the neurological aspect of all that. But inside the muscle, I'm trying to build it up. Whereas if I'm trying to build endurance, it's about my energy availability. It's making sure I have enough glucose, glycogen, creatine, fatty acids. Do I have them in the cell? Can I get them into the cell? Do I have the enzymes to break all that down? That's a completely different process than building up muscle. Now, you do have that middle ground, and if you look at a lot of the events in CrossFit, they're at that middle ground towards being strong and powerful. You don't have too many Murphs.
Right.
You don't have too many tests that are like that, where it's just all about endurance. So that middle ground, that's like that anaerobic work capacity. And it's still about energy production, but it's also about dealing with lactate, right? Lactate's not what causes the burn, but everyone associates that. You can reuse that for energy, but it's part of that process where you get that burn, the lowered pH, and having the muscle buffering capacity to deal with that.
Don't you love it?
Yeah. That would be something that you still can work on.
Yep. And it is something I work on, actually.
But that's in those type 2 fibers. I mean, you've maxed them out towards the strength power end, but they still are adaptable. They're still good, well equipped to deal with that.
Well, yeah, for sure. Like I'm saying extremes of extremes, right? To win the games, it has to be, you're the ultimate extreme. Yeah. I can beat these guys in a lot of things, and I've competed with them, and I understand, but it's that 2% you have to be better. That's so difficult to grab, when the extreme for me is something that, like, when you're at an extreme in CrossFit, to go grab another one and bump that up 2 more percent is just years of work.
And I think your body size is like a detriment there.
100%.
Because like you mentioned the gymnastics. I mean, you can do all of them, and you can do a lot of them. If the normal person were to watch you do them, they're like, wow, you can do these really, really well. But every repetition for you is just that little bit, that 1 or 2% harder for you. And we're talking about 20 events that are at the games?
No, normally around 30. Anyway, the average I think is about 13.
All right.
Either way, it doesn't matter.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of volume still in the workouts.
It's a lot over several days, and that little bit is going to eat away at you. Because, you have, maybe it's that first event that kills you, like last year.
Yeah, everyone died.
Yeah. And now you have to make up ground. That 2% just killed you. You're done. Because everyone has to be perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. That happened to James Sprague last year. He was one of the perfect examples. He's not a powerful athlete, but it didn't matter. He's a bigger guy. And
he's one of the ever since Tommy Hackenbrook, there's never really been big dudes at the games anymore. Right?
Fikowski.
Well, Fikowski.
Vellner's a big guy too.
They're big, but
Heinrich Halpinen.
No, fuck, what was the dude's name I just said? Shit. Hackenbrook. God damn. Sorry. He was like 6'4", 6'5", wasn't he?
I don't know.
That
was also. I do know who that is, but that's before my time.
But you bring up a guy like Vellner. He's got the gymnastics background.
He was a gymnast.
With the swimming background. And
so there's that efficiency. So maybe you can learn to be efficient, but it's kind of late in the game now.
Yeah. Well, 4 years ago, somewhere around there. I took an entire 2 years of training to work on certain deficiencies. And one of the biggest things that came to my conclusion was my torn labrum from 2012, 2013, whatever it was, is a major factor of why my inefficiency overhead screws me in a lot of workouts. My shoulder endurance is actually really good, but it's not great when you're holding yourself by your biceps. That's not how it's supposed to work. So I've spent the last couple years trying to build, like, okay, I can't fix it myself. Let's do all this training to make sure I have this ability to static hold in poor positions as I build efficiency and better positioning. And it's funny, yeah, that worked for a while, and then it'll hit a wall. And I've been working with RPR, like our PT, and Lauren's incredible. And she's like, I'm actually almost able to put my arm overhead and lock it out. I also got stem cell 2 weeks ago, which this is completely subjective. But I talked to my brother, who's the one that did it. And I was like, I feel like the first week it was like on day 7, I noticed like maybe a 10% increase of like, I was warming up and my shoulder didn't hurt just doing my like natural warm up to get in those positions. Cause it hurts to try to like open your shoulder.
I know all this.
Right. So I was like, okay, it was weird. Like I haven't noticed anything, but what I did notice when I was trying to just warm up, I didn't really feel that like, this really hurts to get there. It was but then the pain wasn't sharp or anything. And then this Tuesday was week 2, and I texted him again, and I was like, it was 10 p.m. and I had to get a session in, and I had to snatch super heavy. My shoulder felt good, and I was like, this is weird. Right? I was like, in 14 days, it feels like this, because I would assume it would take 6 months, which I'm still assuming for it to, if it does completely heal, is 6 months. But between those like couple of things, all of a sudden just this past 6 months, my overhead endurance is way better between getting my shoulder to open and stack better. It's still not perfect. Like I still can't stack super well, but comparatively, percentage wise, the increase is unbelievable from what it used to be. And now I can walk my hands way longer and right there, that weakness went out the window just out of efficiency. To get back to the point of like Vellner, that's all he trained. And you have to have really good positioning in everything you do. Fraser was a phenomenal example of anything he did looked the same every single rep, no matter how hard he was going. And his efficiency of how much, like, his reps don't get harder. When people are moving wrong or inefficiently, it gets harder and harder and harder, but he can maintain doing that the whole time.
That's tremendous focus right there.
I'm going to pause for a second. I was way off on Hackenbrook's height. He was only 6'1".
Did you say 6'4"?
6'1".
You love to exaggerate lengths.
I mean, back then, everyone was a midget. So, I mean, I thought Dan Bailey was like 5'9". Motherfucker is a laundry bag of meat.
His biceps might be 5'9".
Honestly,
they are.
His biceps or his traps. I mean, fuck. I didn't even know like Easy Muhammad was not even 6 foot. Right? Like 5'11".
Really?
Yeah, I know. Like, so the last
year, I see him all the time. I'm like,
well, the last year of Grid, when Grid was in the previous Grid, National Pro Grid League, and he was on the Rhinos, we were eye to eye.
I guess he's just got long limbs.
Yeah, and motherfucker can jump really, really well too. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, great levers to jump.
Yeah, whatever. So sorry, I got off topic there. Now, that I feel was a fantastic and quick and easy way to explain everything about the cells do, is how people can get really good at this sport, essentially, or where they need. Would you agree that people need to have a basic understanding of some degree of physiology relative to exercise if they want to be his level or higher in this sport?
Understand it?
Not necessarily understand. I'm talking like kindergarten level, cardiovascular, neurological, etc. adaptations to exercise.
I think maybe they don't, but at least their coach does.
Well, God, I hope so.
News alert. Some don't.
I mean,
you can't just be Forrest Gump going after it, right? Like you can't be.
No.
Mark that one.
I mean, not at the highest level.
No,
you're gonna get hurt.
Like, and that's what I mean too. Like, because I remember, oh shit, there was a documentary put out like right before the era you're talking about, like 2014, 2015 range. And it was kind of like watching that the very first CrossFit Games documentary where everyone's movement was just
Terrible.
absolutely
That guy was
atrocious.
like bouncing the bar on brace.
Yeah. What was his name? I know.
It's like not against the rules.
Yeah, right. That was a funny thing, but like the elite level person in this gym just moved horribly, and this is 2015 documentary.
Yeah.
So when you jumped in, I'll say, and you started recognizing there's no research really here at all, which I will agree with you on, because in 2016, that's when I started my coach education, athlete development masters, and in 2017, my research for my thesis essentially was I went regionally in Georgias and the Carolinas, because I also found that there was no fucking data relative to, one, if there should be a certain level of intelligence and understanding as a coach in a gym or a box. Two, there's nothing here other than the negativity about the sport and the methodology. And as we came to later find out, some of those are fabricated. Correct?
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. I'm not going to say the organization's name or anything. Everyone who has been a part of this for a while knows about it.
Well, I'm gonna bring in the name of that organization because
I think, is he good to do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, and it's not going to
Say
be
whatever he wants.
It's not from a negative standpoint. It's just how I viewed CrossFit when I first looked at it, because having an athletic background, I got into strength and conditioning, and I was first introduced. The first organization ever was the National Strength and Conditioning Association that I got introduced to, and became a strength coach that way. So I grew up learning about training a certain way and looking at the research on resistance training, on sports, and they look at different physiological responses, hormones, what's happening in the muscle cell. And so when my first study ever on CrossFit, I'm like, all right, well, let's start looking at hormonal responses. We did.
Is this your first study?
No, this is the most recent one. The first one was the 2016 Open. We just followed a group of recreational competitors. I mean, none of them. I think the highest anyone in that study got was like 10,000th in one of the workouts.
Okay. So pretty, not necessarily low level, but like good at their
Decent,
gym.
Yeah, good at their gym level.
The weekend warriors.
Kind of. Well, no, I mean, some of them trained. One was an owner.
Okay.
But we looked at like hormone response, saliva. In the saliva. I mean, it was just I needed to get some sort of bearings as far as what's happening in the body. And so my first approach to CrossFit research was basically the same way a lot of the research that the NSCA puts out, the American College of Sports Medicine puts out, in regards to resistance training, endurance training for any type of sport. And it was over time, kind of going back to what we were talking about before, that I was like, yeah, we're going to have these responses, but we're missing some basic information before we can even get to this. Or one, we don't know who these people are. Like, how do you define what makes someone a games level other than that they made it to the games?
Right.
I love that.
Right.
That's a great question.
Like, what makes somebody a good athlete? Like, how do you define that?
Yeah.
And what backgrounds lead to that? If you look at my more recent studies, not even in the paper itself, when I enroll a participant, I'm asking them, what's your experience with resistance training? What's your best lifts? And like, what's your best ever in all of these lifts? How regular do you resistance train? That's one page. Then I go into gymnastics. Same thing. Do you have a gymnastics background? Have you ever competed in gymnastics? And then I get into CrossFit. What's your CrossFit experience? Have you ever competed? And then then I can go and look up, what was their rank? Trying to get, that complete picture of did someone grow up with Olympic weightlifting? And now they don't, or, there's Fraser, he grew up with.
Yeah, he was a big weightlifter.
He doesn't have to learn
So
how to
Tia.
do that stuff.
Right.
What?
Claire Toomey was also, yeah.
But anyone with that background, they don't have to spend time learning efficiency, right? In the gymnastics or the weightlifting. And that's like, I think a lot of people are coming in that are just behind the eight ball because they don't know that stuff. I had a football background, so I did Olympic lifts, but it was more about just the power of doing it.
Starfish cleans.
Exactly. Yeah. Strap up.
Yeah.
Just put everything in. I mean, yes, I did a snatch with straps on.
Holy shit.
I mean,
did he say strap in or strap on?
Yes, with a strap on. Two of them, in fact.
One in front, one in back. I need to stop. Go ahead. Sorry.
But I mean, it was like, it wasn't about technique. It was just about the power. And it was years later, you and Aisha, you're like, holy God, look at this technique, right?
Hell yeah.
And I mean, that was 2017 and I'm still working on it. It's still something that I'm not perfect at. And I mean, I'm the type that spends a lot of time. I have to teach this stuff. I spend a lot of time trying to understand this. And so it's not something I'm just going to pick up and be efficient at, be really good at. So I learned that. It took me a while to learn that that's some of the things I needed to be looking at in the research. So you get some of these, all right, here's this newer one, the influence of sex division experience and pacing strategy. Sex division, you got two different requirements, really. I mean, they program.
We'll overlay it on the video.
Stealing information.
It's out there. Is it on PubMed? Where's this published?
Well, this one is in Frontiers in Sports and Active Living. But yeah, you could find it on
Public
PubMed.
knowledge, guy.
Yeah.
Not stealing shit.
You have different workouts for men and women. So naturally, how they give women a different weight, that's usually what it is. I mean, that's kind of arbitrary, but ultimately it's going to lead to a different physiological response. It's going to potentially lead them to approaching the workout completely different than a man. But then with the experience, we're looking at those questions that I asked, or where did they rank in previous opens? How did they do all that stuff?
It's honestly really cool because you're collecting data. You can have different studies, but you're creating a data pool.
What's the best way for people to look up the things that you write about?
Well, I mean, this right here, you can get right off someone's profile on the leaderboard.
Well, I mean, do they type in your name?
For people to be like, hey, Dr. Jerry Mangine did this study. How do I go find it? Just because most people don't know.
Okay, yeah.
With a
Gerald.
You can go to Google Scholar. So you go to Google, type in the word scholar.
I hate that you have to lay it out.
He does though.
You lecture people too, don't you? You run lecture halls.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't realize. I was like,
I'm not gonna lie. I have to talk this way to college students.
Yeah.
This is why I'm saying, for people that are listening to this, that they need those steps because they don't know.
So type in scholar. How do you spell that?
SCHOLAR.
Got that, Tristan? Did you write it down?
But that'll give you the first thing that'll pop up is Google Scholar, and then you click on that, and then type in my name, Gerald Mangine, and then that'll take you to my profile or a list of my studies.
RankMyProfessor.com.
Not that one. But on there you'll get a whole list, and a lot of these are open access, which means that there's just going to be this little link next to the article that you can download the PDF. Some of them you have to have a membership, but that's very few of these. So yeah, if anyone,
guarantee you that's going to change for this shit with you because
the reason I said that, there's going to be people that are like, oh, I actually kind of am interested. I want to look that up. I want to understand a little bit.
Everybody
more.
Should.
They should.
In our, I will say, opinion. I'll speak for me. I don't really know you that well. You are. I only know of 3 other dudes in the world that are producing the research that you are. That's even close.
There's only a few of us, really.
Yeah, that's a big fucking deal. People need to know about this. People need to take the time to research it if they want to. understand it, even at a baseline level. They don't have to understand. Read the abstract.
The only other guys I know doing it are Wad Science on Instagram, and they do a pretty decent job. They do a lot of studies, but they're always small, and they're
are
not.
they publishing them, or are they just
I think so. Yeah, you can tell me. But because I only see them through like what they're posting on Instagram. But it's perfect for people that don't know much. They just want to see like, here's the question, here's the answer.
Yeah.
Right. They don't want to like really dive into it. But they're just also it's small stuff.
Admittedly, this can get on the more techie side, and that's where they have Instagram. And this is something I really need to do more of, is take this study, turn it into one of those infographics, with little cartoons and pop-ups, and just say, this is the nutshell of what we found.
AI. They'll do it for you now.
Get into crypto AI. They say make a lot of money if you get into it now.
I mean, just need to have more time to do that.
Right.
Sounds like you need a research assistant.
Yeah, or secretary.
I swam in college. You know what I'm into.
You ever see that movie, The Secretary?
Oh, yeah.
Maggie Gyllenhaal?
Yep.
James Spader?
Oh, wait. No, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah.
I heard you
Which one did you see?
I heard you say Secretariat.
Oh, that's about a horse, isn't it?
Yeah, my fault.
Because that's what we're talking about.
Don't judge me.
I mean,
Dan's thinking the other movie he's only thinking of is The Sexy Secretary.
So there's only two guys. There's only two dudes with Wad Science.
Yeah.
But one of them has a name I can't pronounce, so it's probably legit.
It's because they're from Norway, Sweden, Finland. I'd hate to always. We're so American.
I mean, I'm not
it's
gonna
one
lie.
of those, but they're.
I've not seen either one of them in the science research.
Germany.
Really?
As authors, but I mean, they could be doing what I need to do, in that they're reading the research and kind of relaying the information.
I gotcha.
And that's
I
important.
do
too.
know they do some studies, but I just don't know like how they get accredited or anything like that, if they even do. So
Yeah. But I mean, if people are reading this, I mean, my email's right on these things, and like being able to talk about it, that only helps me with the next study. And what should I be looking for? Am I off track? I mean, I post this stuff, because when it comes down to what science is this is our way of officially talking to each other. I talk to other scientists by producing this research. This is a question that I had. I did this study to answer that question to the best of my ability. This is what I found. This is what I think happened. And, I post it out there. It's nice to get a response.
right.
Mm-hmm.
It's, no, I think you're wrong. Did you think about this? Did you think about that? Yeah, maybe I did think about it, but it was really hard to control. Or, no, I didn't think about that, and I'd like to include that the next time in the next go around.
So they did produce research with using NIRS.
Okay.
It was a Pro versus Joe, and this is just kind of a screenshot of their graph and whatnot. But that one apparently has been published. I'm trying to find the link for it, but that's on their X account, formerly Twitter.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, there you have it. Those listening, there's, as of right now, 3 people in the world that is actually documented producing, at least that we are aware of, this type of stuff. And go read it. If you need the Spark Notes version of it, contact Dr. Mangine, like you just said. Email him or whatnot. I'm assuming that's okay.
Yeah.
Or contact Griffin and I, and we can do our best to help you out.
Yeah,
in that sense.
Okay, just give me the title, and honestly, just like, all right, tell me in a nutshell, what did you find?
What main questions do you have that you're like, I need to find a way to answer those? Like, what are the ones that are just burning the most for you?
I think you said something about swimming last time.
Yes. I've been diving down this.
See diving.
Yes, diving. It's quantifying a workout. That I talked about, like, there's this basic information that we need to know. On one hand, it's like, who are these people? But then it comes down to the programming, because you asked, does someone need to have kindergarten knowledge of exercise science? So one of the first things that we teach with putting a program together is progression. right? How do you progress a program? Well, in CrossFit, every day it's supposed to be different, at least by definition.
Right.
But if you're just pulling things off the shelf, haphazardly, you're either not going to get anywhere or you're going to hurt yourself. I mean, if that actually works for somebody, it's because there's no absolutes in life. There's always an exception. And so there has to be some sort of progression in your training program. Well, that works really well with resistance training. I do bench press, 5 sets of 10, for a few weeks, and then I bring it to 5 sets of 8 and then 6. I'm moving in a direction in terms of intensity. Play around with the rest times, some of the other exercises. It's not this big, gigantic problem. It's manageable. If I'm an endurance athlete, it's how far I go. It's my running pace. But then when you look at CrossFit, well, I have my exercises. I have different types of exercises that any of them could be in there with any implement. I mean, it could be a dumbbell, a kettlebell, or a barbell. I got gymnastics. Well, how do you even quantify those other than like how many can you do? Well, how many can you do fresh versus after 30 clean and jerks or after having to run a mile? So like every workout is its own thing. And yeah, I could use traditional methods to quantify how much work I did, but that's going to take me forever. It's going to take forever to know what that means for that person. And so I'm diving down that rabbit hole of what's an easier way to quantify intensity, work completed. And so, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. We're about to start this study looking at intensity as a function of speed, where, all right, you have your max speed ability to do something, and now you're given this workout that has those exercises in there. You're going to approach that workout however you're going to approach it. What is the speed that you do each one of these exercises or around in? How does that compare to what the coach had in mind? Because coaches will have, all right, a target. They'll give you a training target or a target number of reps or a target time to finish the workout. That implies that they had an idea, how fast you should be moving. And then there's, well, what you actually do and how fast you actually move. And so we're going to be taking a look at that. And that could be one way to describe intensity. But if just to kind of answer your question, I need to be able to do that. I need to be able to describe what that work meant for you in that workout. What did the coach have in mind? What did it mean for you as the athlete? And then what's the next one look like? What are the workouts next week or next month look like? Can the coach pinpoint a workload and progress it, and it actually means the same thing for the athlete? A coach can have all these workouts, have an idea of what it means, and then it means something completely different to the athlete. The coach gives you that target time, and you're like, I'm not hitting that.
Yeah, open communication between athlete and coach is extremely important. FYI, I have to know what they thought in their notes, because if I don't, I can only assume that you hit it the way I thought you would hit it.
Yeah.
Right. And if you did, perfect, I can keep it. But if you didn't, I need to change the progression I'm programming, and I'm trying to train you to get better at something.
Yeah.
Which a lot of athletes, I don't think, understand that. Which is cool for me, and on flipped roles, Kyle programs for me now. So now I don't have to do it. But there's a couple awesome things about it. Is one, I don't have to worry about writing my own stuff. Objectively, he can give me what he thinks I need to be doing. But as a coach myself and understanding how to program, so a lot of times I know what he wants me to do, but it doesn't mean that's what he's expecting me to do. And I'll ask him hey, do you want me, so for instance, I had to do 20 power cleans for time at 275. That was it. And it was at I did it the other day, and it was at 10 p.m. at night. Terrible time. I texted him, and I was like, how long were you expecting me to take to do this? And he was like, I don't know, 3 minutes. And I was like,
yeah,
we need to go a lot heavier if we're going to do that.
Yeah.
But it wasn't about, the point wasn't necessarily about the weight. It was just to see where my battery was on a barbell.
Yeah.
At the end of my training day, last thing,
How long did it take you?
The world may never know.
No shit.
It only took me about 90 seconds.
What was the weight?
275.
275 and 20 clean and jerks?
30.
Just 20 power cleans,
20
not
power-
jerks.
Oh, God, yeah.
So
Right, 90
basically
seconds.
for
Yeah.
him, 30.
Touch and go, like, at least half.
So here's a good point for you here. If you go touch and go and you hit a red line, you will have a much slower time. So what I tested was the week before, 2 weeks before, we did 20 power cleans at 225 for time.
Yeah.
Took me 58 seconds.
Okay.
Singles,
Yeah.
right? Like I didn't touch and could I hold on to that bar? Yes. But I knew the point wasn't to.
Yeah.
With the way we had again didn't have the notes. Is a perfect example. It was I could see the progression of what we were doing each week, building that barbell battery back, and looking at like, okay, well, yeah, I can hold on to that bar. Most people can't. So that's not the point of the test. Let's see how long does it take for you to, drop it, pick it right back up, good reps the whole time. Essentially it was muscle cleaning it, but in order to do it that fast, right? People are like, 30 seconds. You think you can move an empty barbell and do cleans to the floor in 1 second? No. It's just not going to happen. So like once you start breaking down how long it takes to do that rep, the intensity of it, for me, 225 was a joke. 275, I actually had to kind of pace it because the last 5 reps is typically where people slow down. You don't want to slow down. So like knowing how long that was going to take, okay, 20 reps was about 4 seconds a rep, right? I'm not using dead plates, so I have to wait for it to settle.
Yeah.
That's part of the time, right? So it's like a perfect example of what does that intensity look like. I could have pressed that harder for sure. Absolutely could have. But for the test of what it was looking at is, can you just grab it and pick it up and go and not set it like, we need to go to 315 now.
Yeah.
Right? So like, I'm sure that's what the progression's going to be.
And that's exactly what I was thinking with this whole thing is like, okay, the coach and the athlete, if they know each other really well, the coach is probably going to hit right on the nose the weights and the distances, the reps and all that stuff, and it'll end up being the speed that it was intended. But if not, you would adjust something like that, whether it's the intensity, whether it's a different exercise, but you make that small adjustment, you know exactly what to make, because otherwise you're just waiting to see what happens. You just wait. All right, you can say, oh, my heart rate was this after a workout. Well, every heart rate's going to be high after a CrossFit workout. RPE. Well, what's the difference? Every workout's going to be a 9 or a 10. So if we look at these as function of speeds for each individual exercise, well, you can get more precise in making those adjustments. And if you see that they're not moving at the speed, whether it's the full round or in specific exercises, you can make a really easy adjustment. It's easier. And it'll end up leading to more precise response that you're looking for. And if you can make the intended response happen, well, then you can progress it.
I think the biggest and the hardest thing to figure out is the quantity of reps over the domain of a week. What's the right number? Because I'll give you go back to that question. All right, I just did that workout. Well, that was workout. It was on Tuesday. That's workout number 7 or 8 of the already of the week.
Yeah.
So no, it wasn't my 100% effort. Because it can't be. So yeah, if someone's like, oh, well, how long does that take you? Your first thought is, how fast could he possibly do this? I can't. Well, it's not at my 100%. It can't be.
Yeah.
So now you have to think, how do I progress this correctly where I wanted him to hit this exact intensity, but knowingly the day before I already had 90 heavy sandbag cleans, 100 and something heavy dumbbell snatches. All my pulling was already smoked. I had a bunch of heavy snatches before that. So like, what's the right number to hit that intensity through the week? And the question is, no one knows really.
No, and honestly, like, we're not even close to even figuring that out. Like,
really?
Right? Yeah, no, we're not. You look at like what I just said about looking at intensity. That's the same. We're in the same spot that we were like 100 years ago when they first started doing weight training. Like, what does this weight mean? How many times a week should I be doing this? Like, we don't know any of that yet. So I mean, it's not like a small question that I'm asking here, and it's not something that's going to be answered overnight. It's just like where this research, if it's going to go anywhere, is we need to get some of these basic things down, like what is a workout? What constitutes intensity? What constitutes volume? Because like volume can mean a lot of different things. I mean, what is double under volume compared to push-ups or thrusters or muscle ups? I mean, the amount that you do is completely different.
Based on your muscle demand, though, right? Like your calves can only handle so much jumping.
Yeah. So you have these muscle groups that you got to consider. Now you got all of them to consider.
Right.
But then there's the skill of it. I mean, there's just so many different parts to this problem, and people want to try and jump to answering that. They want to solve the problem right away, and we don't even know all the players.
Right.
It's true.
There's this paper. I think it is just got accepted, but it came to me to review, and I just didn't have time to review it. But it was like solving the programming puzzle was the title of it, and I'm like, I don't even have time for this right now. We don't. There's no way that they figured it all out, because we don't even know what there is to be figured out yet. Before we even started, like what makes a great CrossFit athlete, and we talked about, you asked if the sound was on, and I forget what I said, but like it was something along the lines of, at certain point, you have to have all these physical attributes, and then you have to be okay with pain. There's that mental aspect, but then there's the strategy. How do you approach a work? I mean, how do you pace it? Like every workout's different, but are they? So many pieces to this puzzle that like there's no one's solving this anytime soon.
No, and I think like the best coaches and programs for this are the ones that go back to things that are they're not figured out, but strength training for the most part, most people have figured most of it out.
Oh, yeah.
Could be they're not perfect, because every athlete, there's stressors in their day, at home, whatever your environment is, that's a big player, right?
Yeah.
And you can't quantify your environment. Like there's just you can't. There's too many variables. So because everyone's is going to be different. So how do you figure out? Yeah, AI. AI will figure it out.
You should see some of these data management softwares that like strength coaches will use. Basically, you have all these different technologies that collect data. I mean, it could be your you come into the workout, and it's like a visual analog scale or an RPE scale or something like that. You press a button on your phone, and it goes right into this management software, and the strength coach can sit on the back end and graph the things that they want to look at. So you can do it, but
kind of.
Well, no, you should be a good strength coach should know what's going on in their athlete's life.
100%. Right. So the problem that you can't quantify from that is how did that, like, you could say like your HRV shows you how about like whatever, but the mental side from your environment, well, you could be the same stress level, body stressed out today as you are in a month, and the exact same workout, and it'd be entirely different results because your mind might not have been there one day because you were, just because you were stressed out, you started thinking something else and it made it worse, or maybe it made it better because you it's too difficult to quantify that side of it. But programming right now that makes the most sense is going back to things that are very well researched and show these linear progressions, and you go through like times of the year building upon, all right, we're going to focus on a strength program that we know, hey, there are numbers that you should be hitting. There are percentages. There are some reps there, and that is easily quantifiable because you're like, this is all you're doing today. Yeah. We're not doing a bunch of random shit.
Yeah.
Where this is consistent, and we're doing the same thing next week, and we're gonna make it a little bit harder. And no, we're not going for another 6 mile run. That's not in there.
Yeah.
Right. And now we can track this a lot easier. And then, okay, now I know. Guess what? I can add in some aerobic work. I know what my progression of this needs to be. Unfortunately, you're not testing CrossFit, but you're building yourself across these different domains so that when that test does show up, you're prepared.
And I 100% agree with that. And I mean, I'm sure the highest level coaches, they're not really sharing what they're doing
No.
because otherwise, they wouldn't be, everyone would be doing it.
Right.
But I think it's along those lines is that they are training their athletes the traditional way, and they're viewing CrossFit as a skill.
Yes.
The
Correct.
Being the ability to approach a WOD as a skill. So I mean, don't get me wrong. I think the puzzle, as far as the training aspect, that part's solved. It's what makes someone really good at CrossFit, and when you are doing CrossFit, that's the part that we still don't know.
So it's funny that make a really good point. Is all sports you train to be better at your sport by being in the gym and doing all these things.
Yeah.
You still train in the gym to be better at CrossFit without having to do CrossFit. The elite level athletes aren't just doing CrossFit. You are doing training to get better at the skill of CrossFit, like you would train to get better at the skill of football.
Yeah, exactly. That's 100% correct. And I think the coaches know that. And then
some of them do.
Well, the athletes that you see year in and year out showing up, they know that. And then even when it comes to training the skill of CrossFit, the part that isn't well known, it's the athlete, the coach, they have that communication. You made the point, like stress level a month ago, it could be the same. But if you know somebody, you know them well, you're tracking them you don't get to know somebody overnight.
No.
It's from knowing them a long time. And so you can tell the difference, the same stress level, 2 different times a year, and know that they are caused by different things. Because you're comparing that person to themselves. And the only way you can do that is if you have extensive data.
Right.
On them. And I mean, whether that's official data or it's data that, I know this person, I've known them forever.
Right.
And that's true in the traditional strength and conditioning setting. I mean, that's where those data management softwares come in. That's what I tell my students. It's like, if you want to avoid overtraining, you really need to know who your athlete is, and you have to know where all the stress is coming from. Overtraining is just overstressing.
Yeah.
For too long. It doesn't even have to be a big stress. It could be something that, like, I can't believe that caused the injury. It could be something as small as that. But the better you know the athlete and the telltale signs, whether or not it actually happens, you can start to recognize when it might happen and make a change there.
What do you like? And obviously this is opinion based. What do you feel like makes the best CrossFit athlete? Like, if you were gonna, like, this is like a guess, right?
Yeah.
Let's see what you got here.
I mean, obviously you've seen data, not enough, but you've seen some where it might push you towards a certain way to think.
One of my first studies was I had a student grab some leaderboard data, and we grabbed information off of people's profile, what they posted about, like, their best squat was, all that stuff you can put on your profile. And one of the conclusions that we made from that study, looking at the top 1,500 of the open for men and women, we didn't see a ton of differences in the different WODs. We didn't see a ton of differences in, like, some of the anaerobic measures. Yes, the top 300, they were better than everybody else in all of those things. But there's a lot of evenness amongst after that 300 to everyone else. The one thing that was different, like, successively, so the top 300 to 600, and so on and so forth, was strength and power. So the conclusion that I made there was that you're going to have this base motor that you need to have. Those numbers, like, you need to be able to work this long, this hard. That opens the door for you.
Right.
All right. After that, can you move weight? Are you powerful?
Yes.
You can be powerful, but then not have that motor. And in that study, I mean, we only looked at it in a very limited way. So I think it's that motor defining what is that base level of pain you're willing to accept.
Right.
The ability to keep that high level of effort. How long does that need to be? that's the part that I don't know, but I know that that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just how strong.
Yeah, 100%. Like you have to, and if you're limited by how you can breathe, you're fucked up no matter what.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, you're screwed. So you have to have that base, right? If you can't breathe through that. But then once we get into that next point, yeah, we have to have a power output to reach a certain level. In that middle ground, a metcon, metabolic conditioning, your body's ability to use energy efficiently. Can it do that well? And then then the other side is is your brain, right? Being able to turn that on. But I guess the last big important thing to wrap up is something that you're working on or want to work on pretty soon that people might want to like listen and pay attention to.
So, well, the next study that's coming up is one of my master's students. We're going to take a look at that intensity. That study, we're going to be looking for participants, people that want to, participate. And that's going to be looking at the speed of movement, looking at the different movements as a function of how fast you can move in those individual movements.
Can people do that? Do they have to do it in person, or is it? Can they do it remotely?
Study, but I mean, I might try to see if I can do something a little bit more widespread. Because the problem with the study that we're going to run is that it's just going to be one workout.
Right.
Or it's going to be two different versions, different volumes of the same workout. At CrossFit, there's so many different ways to do this. So I might be interested in looking at something a little bit more widespread. But like the other thing that I've been working on, which is going to help, is I said earlier, it's like our workout's different. Can we classify the different types of workouts so that like, you have all these workouts with different names. Our Grace and Fran, they're called sprints, but are they the same?
Right. They're not.
They're not. They're actually, as far as the pace that you move, completely different. Like repetitions per minute or second, however you want to look at it. Grace is way slower than Fran. So one of the things I'm trying to do is I got all the open data, like everybody that's ever done it. I have all of that, and I'm trying to do what's called factor analysis. Like, what are the common themes amongst all these different workouts, and can I kind of sort them into bins of maybe like 4 or 5 bins, and just say this is a workout. This 5-10 workouts, they fall into this bin, and then here's this other bin, and so on and so forth. That's the next thing that I'm working on. And I have a colleague, Josh Dexheimer. He's out in California. He does publish a little bit on CrossFit research. The two of us are working on that. And then the follow-up to that is, okay, now we have these workouts as bins. Now let's look at the exercises within each of those workouts. Which ones are interchangeable? Could I replace muscle ups in this, for lack of a better term, this sprint style workout? Could I replace muscle ups with another exercise and get the same response?
Right.
We're going to try and set the stage for identifying those bins and the exercise types within them based off of scored data. And then we'll go into actually the lab and kind of test to see if our theory is correct.
Yeah, I mean, you're essentially looking at the time per repetitions of like what that is, because that would help kind of define like how much energy it takes to do that, and then the intensity of those movements.
Well, that time, the speed, but then we'll look at exercises in terms of how complex they are.
Right. Like you can't. I'll tell you right now. Like if you were to write a sprint workout and you put bar muscle ups and then exchanges it for ring muscle ups, it's a different workout.
Oh, absolutely.
It's entirely different.
One I can do and one I cannot.
Well, one has a movable object, one has an object that's not going to move. I mean, it's fixated. And then the energy that it takes to have to stabilize through that and the time difference, they're entirely different, but people will be like, oh, it's the same, just change it out.
Nope. No, it's bar muscle ups. Maybe I can sprint that. If it's ring muscle ups, it's going to be this really long duration, easy workout for me because I'm going to do 1, maybe 2, and then I'm going to sit there and stare at the rings for 5 minutes.
Nice.
Relatable.
Hell yeah. Well, guys, I hope people learn some cool things. I'm sure Jerry will not want to come back. I'm kidding. Maybe he will want to come back, and we can talk about some specific things after he's done some studies that you guys are probably interested in hearing, because it's a lot of good information from him. Also, if you're in the CrossFit realm and you're like, this hit me, I want to know more about it, I have questions that maybe it would help him with what he's trying to learn and study, because that's one thing that we would like to add is we're going to try and do a gymnastics study with swimming and see how that actually does relatively translate into CrossFit and how to build you guys without having to do too much volume on the rig and teach you how to do things correctly. Super, super interesting because we've kind of tested it, but without actually drawing data and having it in a confined environment. So we're going to work on that next as well. But we appreciate you hopping on, Jerry. This is a good
Thanks
time.
for having me. This is really fun.
If people want to get in contact with you social media wise, how can they find you? You got Instagram, you got OnlyFans, you got what you got?
I mean, I got Instagram. I couldn't even tell you what my
The
name
only
is.
Jerry on OnlyFans. I'm kidding.
We'll put it in the description. I sent it to
I'll look
T-Rays.
up my social media and then I'll tell you after that.
It's Sprints something.
Yeah,
It's 4540.
Yeah. You'll when you see the super swole man, you'll know it's him.
You know, you want to get great at this sport, do your due diligence, read the research, and also get yourself into a place that's going to help your body. We're lucky to be here at Hybrid Spine and Sport. Recover, Stabilize, Optimize. Dr. Peter Alexander. Get yourself here in Roswell, Georgia, as well as our partnership with RPR, Repair, Perform, Repeat, by Dr. Lauren Polivnik.
Recover, but same difference there, bud.
Sorry, Lauren. Anyway, get yourselves there. Thank you, Dr. Mangine. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Griffin. Thank you, Tristan.